Snow has a way of swallowing sound in a place like Silverton. Out here in the Colorado mountains, winter didn't just arrive. She settled in, wrapped herself around the town, and stayed longer than anyone wanted. I used to love the quiet she brought, back when I wore my badge, and trusted the world to make a little more sense than it does now. But retirement changes a person. Loss changes a person even more. That night, the cold was the kind that stiffened the air itself, turning every breath into a pale cloud that drifted toward the porch light. My German shepherd, Ranger, slept stretched across the braided rug by the wood stove, snoring softly, in that peaceful way only aging dogs can. I just settled into my favorite armchair, with a mug of peppermint tea, when Ranger's ears twitched. One ear, then the other, like radar coming online. A heartbeat later, he was up. A low, rumbling growl built in his chest, not of aggression, but alertness. Ranger hadn't served on the force with me. He'd come later, after my wife passed, when a man who spent his whole life protecting others suddenly realized he had no one left to protect. But even without formal canine training, he had instincts sharper than any deputy I'd ever worked with. He padded to the door, glanced back at me, then let out a short, urgent bark. I frowned. Easy, boy. It's probably just the wind. But before I could rise from the chair, there came a sound I hadn't heard in years. Knock, knock, knock. Desperate, frantic, small. My heart gave a jolt. No one came up this road at night, not in winter, and certainly not in a storm like this. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, and the main road had been closed all afternoon due to ice. Ranger stared at me, tail stiff, posture rigid with concern. The knocking came again.
Shaky.
Uneven, like the hand doing it barely had strength left. I grabbed my old sheriff's flashlight from the hook by the door, flicked on the porch light, and opened the door just enough to see who stood there. A girl, no older than 14, teetered on the threshold. Her lips were blue, her coat soaked through, her breath a thin, trembling fog. Snowflakes stuck to her eyelashes like tiny crystals, and she held her arms tightly around herself, as though trying to stop her body from shaking apart. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking. I need help." She didn't look like a runaway. She didn't look like she belonged to these mountains either. There was something haunting about her eyes, wide with fear, but carrying a weight too old for her years. Before I could ask anything, her knees buckled. Ranger lunged forward faster than I did, positioning himself under her falling weight. I caught her by the shoulders and pulled her inside. Easy, easy now. I shut the door behind us, sealing out the storm. "You're safe. I've got you." Her body shook uncontrollably, every muscle shivering with cold. Ranger pressed against her leg, offering warmth without hesitation. When she looked down at him, a tear slid down her cheek. You have a dog," she whispered, as if those simple words carried some hidden relief. "Yeah," I said softly. "This here's Ranger. He's a good one." She gave a tiny nod, but said nothing more. I wrapped a thick wool blanket around her shoulders and led her to the sofa near the wood stove. The heat made steam rise from her soaked boots. "What's your name?" I asked gently, kneeling so my eyes were level with hers. She hesitated. "Lila." "And how old are you, Lila?" 15, she said, though her voice wavered, like she wasn't entirely sure. "You out here alone?" Another hesitation. She looked down, twisting her hands beneath the blanket, her knuckles pale as frost. Ranger nuzzled her wrist, and she flinched, not out of fear, but as though the gesture broke something fragile inside her. I exchanged a glance with my dog. Years on the force taught me, when someone was hiding something out of fear versus guilt, this was fear. Raw, bone deep. "Lila," I said carefully. "Did someone hurt you?" Her jaw trembled. She didn't answer. And sometimes, silence is an answer louder than words. I stood, poured hot water into a mug, and handed it to her. Ranger lay at her feet, never breaking his watch on her. "You're safe here," I told her again. "No one's going to hurt you, but I need to understand what you're running from." She squeezed the mug, staring into the steam as though searching for courage inside it. Finally, her voice came, barely more than a whisper. "They're coming for me." My breath paused. "Who's they?" I asked. She swallowed hard. "Two men. They were following me through the woods. I think they're still out there." Ranger's ears perked. Outside, the wind moaned, but underneath it, something else. A faint crunch. Snow shifting. My flashlight still lay near the door. My service revolver, unloaded but maintained out of habit, sat in the cabinet by the stairs. And outside was a storm that could freeze a grown man in minutes. I looked back at Lila, trembling violently on my couch. Then I looked at Ranger. The cold of the storm seeped through the windows, but the decision came warm and steady. "No one touches you while we're here," I said firmly. "Not tonight, not ever." Ranger stood, tail low, body tense, ready, because whatever nightmare had driven this girl through the freezing woods, it hadn't stayed behind. It had followed her, and it was getting closer. Ranger's low growl vibrated through the floorboards. As I crossed to the window, the snowfall was heavy, blurring the tree line into a white haze. But movement, subtle, cautious, flickered between the pines. Two shapes, slow, calculated. "Lila," I said quietly, "did they follow you all the way from town?" She shook her head. "Not town. Father, I don't know where I even ended up. I just ran. I saw your light through the trees. My stomach tightened. No car tracks on the road. No footprints except hers. Those men had to be cutting through the woods, staying out of sight. Old instincts, long retired but never extinguished, surged through me. I'd seen this pattern before. Organized, deliberate pursuit. Not a couple of drunk wanderers, not lost hikers. Someone who wanted a girl badly enough to chase her through a blizzard. "Ranger," I murmured. He was already ahead of me, nose to the crack beneath the door. Hackles raised. "Lila, listen to me." I crouched in front of her again. "Why were they after you? Tell me anything you can. It matters." She trembled harder. I didn't mean to hear it." "Hear what?" "They were talking in that cabin by the river. I was just cutting through the woods. I didn't realize anyone was there. And then I heard them say they were going to take someone. A woman, I think. They said no one would find her in the storm." A cold shiver that had nothing to do with weather crawled up my spine. What happened next? One of them came out to load something in their truck, and he saw me listening. I ran. They chased me. They said they couldn't let me mess up the job. She clutched the blanket tighter. I didn't know where else to go. A kidnapping plot in Silverton. After all these quiet years, I exhaled slowly. "You did the right thing coming here." A sharp thud hit the porch, soft but unmistakable. Lila gasped. Ranger lunged forward, barking deep and thunderous. I grabbed the baseball bat from the coat rack, its handle worn from the days I used it, to hit balls for Ranger to fetch, and motioned for Lila to stay low. I killed the lamp, plunging us into shadows, cast only by the fire's glow. Another noise scraped along the siding, like someone brushing a gloved hand along the wooden boards. They were testing the house, checking windows, hunting in the storm. Quiet as I could, I crossed to the radio on the shelf. The landline was out. Winter storms loved to snap power lines, but the emergency channel should still work. Static. Snowstorm interference. I whispered to Lila, "Get behind the wood stove." Ranger with her. Ranger obeyed instantly, herding her gently with his body. She crouched behind the stone hearth as the dog pressed close, shielding her with his frame. Then came a sound that froze the breath in my lungs. The porch boards creaking under weight. Human weight. I raised the bat. "Stay where you are," I whispered again. The knob turned slightly. Once, twice. "Testing?" Then a voice outside. Muffled. Male. I saw her tracks. She came this way. Another voice responded. Lower. Mina. She couldn't have gone far. "That old man won't give us trouble." Old man. They didn't know my name. Didn't know I used to be sheriff of this county. Good. Let them underestimate me. A heavy hand struck the door, one sharp hit. Ranger positioned himself between her and the noise. Tail stiff, teeth bared. Back to the truck. The second man growled. "We'll circle around." She had to pass the creek. If she didn't freeze, she'll try to call for help. Their footsteps crunched into the snow, fading into the hiss of the storm. I waited until the last crunch disappeared. Before exhaling, the man outside jiggled the back door again. Harder this time. The hinges shuddered, and a thin dusting of snow shook loose from the frame. I stepped closer, planting my feet firmly, as Ranger growled beside me, a low thunder rolling from deep in his chest. "Listen," the first man shouted. "We just want the girl. She doesn't belong to you." I clenched my jaw. "She doesn't belong to you either." There was a pause, a tense, stunned silence. Then the second man snarled. "Old man, you don't know what you're involving yourself in. Open this door, and we'll leave you alone. Keep standing in the way, and we'll come in and move you aside." I didn't shout back. I simply raised the bat and said, calm but ice cold, "You come through that door, and you won't walk away." Ranger barked so fiercely that the man on the other side stumbled back with a curse. "Let's regroup," I heard one of them mutter. "He's got a dog, and he sounds like he means business." Their footsteps faded into the storm again, fast, irritated, heading back toward the tree line. But we both knew they would be back. I stoked the fire higher, but the cold outside seeped through the walls. The storm was worsening, wind howling like a freight train passing through the valley. Snow hammered the windows so thickly they were nearly opaque. I returned to the emergency radio. Still static. Lila's voice broke the silence. "What do we do now?" I grabbed a map from the drawer, old, worn, but still clear enough, and laid it on the table. "There's an outpost station half a mile through the woods. Has a stronger radio tower. If we can get to it, we can contact the sheriff." She paled. "Half a mile in this storm? We'd have to take the back trail. The men might still be near the main path." She swallowed, then whispered, "Will we survive out there?" I nodded. "We will, but only if we move carefully." Ranger wagged his tail once, just once, slow and deliberate, like he understood and accepted the job ahead. Lila looked down at him. "He's not scared, is he?" I smiled faintly. "No, Ranger doesn't get scared. Not when someone needs him." We gathered supplies, thick coats, gloves, lanterns, an emergency blanket. I wrapped one around Lila, tucking it in firmly so the wind wouldn't tear it away. Ranger stood beside her like a sentry, ready for orders. "Stay close to me," I instructed. "No matter what you hear, don't run. Ranger will guide you if visibility gets bad." I opened the back hatch slowly, the wind slamming it wide as if trying to snatch it from my hand. Snow swirled violently, stinging our faces. The night was pitch black, except for the faint glow of the lantern. We stepped out into it. The cold wrapped around us instantly, biting deep, stealing breath. Halfway across the yard, Ranger stopped. His ears shot up, his body stiffened. Then we heard it, footsteps breaking branches, closing in. "They're cutting us off," I murmured. They knew we'd try for help. "We take the creek bed," I said. "It's dangerous, but it bends behind the ridge. They won't expect us to cross it." We bolted toward the frozen creek. The men shouted behind us, giving chase. Ranger raced ahead, barking once to signal direction. The creek appeared, wide, white, covered in a frozen crust. Step where Ranger steps. He'll find the thickest ice. Behind us, the men reached the bank, fast, reckless. A crack split the air, sharp, echoing. The ice fractured violently. One man screamed. Then a splash, a violent, icy splash. Another crack, another scream swallowed by the storm. We reached the far bank just as the ice shuddered one final time. We crested the ridge. The woods shielded us from the worst of the wind. But when we reached the clearing by the outpost, Ranger froze again, full-body lock. Headlights glowed through the snow. Their truck. They were waiting. I pulled Lila behind a fallen tree. I pointed to the maintenance shed. "Circle around, stay low, get inside. Ranger will clear it." Then I stepped into the open. "You want me?" "Here I am." Both men emerged, one with a club, the other with a pistol. I let out a sharp whistle, 3 short bursts. Ranger charged. Lila sprinted for the outpost door. The gun went off. Snow blasted from the impact. A fist slammed into my ribs. I swung the bat hard. The man with the pistol stumbled back, dropping the gun into the snow. The other tackled me from behind. We hit the ground hard, rolling across the frozen earth. The world spun. The storm screamed. And somewhere in that blinding white chaos, I heard Lila's voice, desperate and breaking. "Sheriff, Ranger, please don't let him win." And I knew this fight wasn't over.